Story time with a moral, obviously. So when I was 17 years old, I took, I believe it was 5 tabs of acid with a friend of mine. He was probably about 16 or 15. Probably, yeah, like a year and a half younger than me, maybe. He's actually the witness, on a Jewish marriage contract, you have 2 witnesses who sign it, biblical marriage contract. So he's one of the witnesses on my marriage contract, my ksuba. Anyway, so this is, a good few years before I got married. Anyways, so, we took in my parents' house in Lakewood, New Jersey. It was on a holiday, either Passover. I think it was on Passover. Maybe Shavuos, maybe Sukkot. I think Passover, I don't know. It was some holiday. We took 5 doses of LSD each. We each took 5. And it was very, very intense. And it was very good. Very good. Like, an hour later, we decided to take more, yeah? I don't know, maybe an hour later, 2 hours later, 3 hours later. At some point in the middle of the trip, we decided we're going to take more. So we each took another 5 doses, yeah? So that's 10 doses of LSD, I think, yeah? Pretty sure that's what we did, 5 and 5. And also later, I think someone told us they were like double dosed. I don't know. Pretty much, we ended up taking a ridiculous amount of LSD. Yeah, a ridiculous amount. And we were having a good time. It wasn't like scary. It wasn't bad. But at some point, the conversation became like, dude, we're going to go meet Hashem. We're going to meet God, Like, F this body. Let's get out of our bodies. And I went into the kitchen. I got a knife. I got a knife for myself. And I got a knife for my friend. And I was like just waiting for him to get on board. He wasn't so much on board to like go meet Hashem using a knife, on our bodies. But but anyways, yeah, so my father comes down in the morning to have his coffee and go to synagogue, yeah. And I go ask him, I was like, what's the big deal? Why is everyone like so afraid of this thing called suicide? Like, what if I just go kill myself, meet Hashem? Like, why is that such a big deal, Later, my friend that I was with told me, like, had my father not come down and we had another hour together, he probably would have taken his life with me. He was like, I almost had him convinced, Anyway, so my father goes to the synagogue and he gets the emergency response, it's not the 911, but in the Jewish community, we have our own 911 emergency services. So they showed up and were trying to evaluate me on the spot. They called an ambulance. They put me in a stretcher to take me to the psych ward. When I got to the psych ward, I was already I realized listen, fuck this acid trip. It's all fun and games, but I'm not trying to stay in the psych ward. So I spoke to the doctors pretty normally and they let me go. They didn't even hold me there. But when I was on the stretcher in the ambulance, before we got to the hospital, as soon as we got to the hospital, I sobered up real quick. It took a second, I sobered up. I was like, fuck it, we're going to the hospital, I'm not into it, But before that, when we were leaving my house, or right outside my house on the stretcher, so I remember them opening my eyelids and flashing lights into my eyes, and I remember hearing them say oh, he's unresponsive. But I was choosing to be unresponsive. I could have lifted my hand, I could have talked to them, but I was enjoying my trip. I liked where I was, Anyway, okay, so here's what I want to talk to you about. This was all background, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about. I remember kind of going to heaven, kind of, I remember experiencing this divine delight, pleasure that I never really experienced before. And in my thoughts, I was going to heaven. I was in heaven. I could see white bright lights. I could see drawing closer to this white bright light. I remember even we went across a bridge, and in my experience, we weren't going horizontally across the bridge. We were going vertically straight up to God, on a roller coaster straight up to God, The funny thing is, it sounds kind of retarded, and it's embarrassing to say, but I remember the pleasure that I was feeling was also sexual, and also had to do with defecation. I remember having imagine a feeling if you really need to defecate, you really need to poop, and you're holding it in, and then finally you get to poop. And then also the male ejaculation. So I don't think I pooped. I mean, I didn't poop in my pants and I didn't ejaculate in my pants, but the feeling that I was associating with this like divine pleasure was like pooping and ejaculating at the same time, and like times a million. Like it was very, very intense poop and a very intense ejaculation. Why am I bringing this up? Because it's a very powerful point that what we perceive is only through what we know. For someone to experience some kind of high pleasure, if they're a very perverse person, which I am and was, I remain pretty perverse, you are going to experience, even if you're experiencing something divine, if your vessel is unworthy, you're going to experience it in an unworthy way. Even the prophets had this issue where they would receive pure prophecy, but by the time it filtered down through their mind and their brain, and they gave it over, there was always a chance that they would mess it up with how they interpreted it. Even a prophet, and I'm not a prophet, I'm not the son of a prophet, right? Or I guess I am. We say the Jews, if you're not a prophet, the son's a prophet. I don't know. But it's a very powerful point that we need to remember, okay? We experience things through our own lens and through our own perceptions and through things that we know. Even if you're experiencing something that's true and real, your mind is filtering all this information. You're experiencing it through the mind. And if you're in a perverse state of being, state of mind, that's how you'll experience it. Also, the white light. Why did I see white light? I don't know if I really went to heaven or anything, but we all grow up hearing stories of near-death experiences. They saw the white light. So if you're tripping on 10 or somewhere between 10 and 20 tabs of acid, your brain is going to show you white light because you think you're going to God, and that's what it knows. It knows that when you go to God, you see white light, so it shows you white light. Does this make sense? I'm really here saying you all this to address this. I have a friend on Facebook who tells me he met Jehovah. He tells me he is Seraphel. He is Metatron. All this bullshit. The guy's fucking retarded. He's straight up retarded. But I'm here to tell you he's not that retarded. He learned about this thing called Jehovah. He learned about this thing Metatron. He learned about this thing called Seraphel, which maybe no one should have ever taught him about it because he's clearly not ready for such information. He's abusing this information. But at the end of the day, that's how we perceive things and understand things. If he's experiencing his soul, maybe he's going into psychosis or some state of elevated consciousness, and he's experiencing his higher self. So his brain interprets it as like, oh, see, now I'm Metatron. He's not that off. He's experiencing something real. He's experiencing it through his perverse, immature, dumb brain, and dumb mind. So that's what I'm here to address. Don't always think that everything you experience is real. Obviously, the thing you're experiencing is there and true if you're experiencing it. But you have to remember, your own mind and your own brain are lying to you. They're only telling you what they know or what they think you're ready to know. And if you're in a perverse state of being, you're going to experience truth in a perverted way. Make sense?